Yes.
How y'all doing? Okay. Good morning.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. How you been, boss?
It's Patty and my real name is Patrick, so it's Patty and Patty.
Yeah. For
I'm
once,
doing
though,
good.
for once, though, we're not wearing the same shoes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we always wore Chucks with red laces. Was the darndest thing.
Cool.
I got the grays. Ooh, you're rocking the little. Very comfortable.
Yeah, it's like I'm 71 years old, but I dress like I'm 16 still.
There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely.
Keeps me young.
Well, welcome to Des Moines. You ever been here before?
Yeah, actually, I have several times. My grandmother lived in Missouri, right by the border, and we drove up here often. And also the guys from in Iowa, not Des Moines, but in Iowa in general, the American Pickers guys are there, and I've been over to Field of Dreams as well. So yeah,
Oh,
cool.
very nice.
I like Iowa.
Yeah, so do we. Well, let's tell you what. So, in case anybody doesn't know it, let's go ahead and do the origin story. What got you, as a child actor, what got you into the business? Because sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's the parents.
People say, how did you get started? And I tell them, I say, there's not a whole lot of 7-year-old kids in second grade that decide they come home and, they're doing their homework and they look up and they go, hey, let's just get in the movie business, something to do. For me, it was an accident. My little sister was actually the target of the focus, and what they were doing is there was a gentleman in our hometown that wanted to be mayor. And our dad was kind of an influential guy, and they thought a good way to get his endorsement would be to put Michelle in a magazine and do some print modeling. She was about 3 years old. And for that day, when they were taking pictures, I went along for the ride. And when he was finished with her portraits, the guy looked over and he goes, he's got kind of a look. Do you mind if I take a picture for my own? And my mom said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And he put that photo in his window on Hollywood Boulevard. His gentleman's name was Amos Carr. And any kid actor from that period had Amos Carr as their photographer. And a guy was walking down the street about a week or two later with the producer and a director from 20th Century Fox, and they were still looking to cast the youngest son of Eddie Albert and Jane Wyatt in this little B movie. And Brenda Lee was my older sister. So I went up basically for an interview. And they tracked me down. I went up for the interview. Got the movie. Mary Grady was my agent, and she was the world's first child-only actor's agent. Her son was Robbie on My Three Sons, Don Grady. And other than Don, I was her first client, and that's how it all started. And it just accidentally, during the 6-week shoot, I got a Kellogg's Cornflakes commercial, and then I got General Hospital, and then one thing led to another, and then the Real McCoys, and then the Munsters.
You also did an episode of My Favorite Martian.
Yeah, I did Two Mr. Eds, My Favorite Martian, I Dream of Jeannie.
You were on that
Rawhides and Gunsmokes and Bonanzas, Death Valley Days. I could ride a horse, so that came in handy. And I did quite a bit of The Untouchables. That was a good one.
Yeah. No. You were very prolific in again, child actor in that late 50s, early 60s, that black and white era of TV.
The transitional era, black and white series, transitioning over to color, and I worked from 60 to 74. But I did a pretty decent body of work. I never really wanted to be an actor. I was just a kid that had a knack for memorization, and I wasn't intimidated by the process. So I got along well, and I was comfortable with adults, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did the Munsters blip on the radar?
The Munsters, the Munsters in itself is a very strange phenomenon. A 2-year show, 70 episodes. It was produced by the Leave It to Beaver guys as their next project after Leave It to Beaver went off the air. But the key was Universal Studios was the monster studio in the late 30s, 40s, and 50s. They did all the classics. We all know Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, so on and so. Even the Invisible Man and the Creature of the Black Lagoon. But they really had a handle on doing the film noir of monster movies and the shadowing and everything that applied to the Munsters. So what they did is they took their Universal monster techniques and their images, and then they transferred them to a Leave It to Beaver comedy script with a family, with a twist. Of course, the twist was Marilyn was the unfortunate one. Yeah. She loved us even though we were monsters, and it came out to be pretty much comedy gold with Fred Gwynn and Al Lewis from Car 54. And Yvonne DiCarlo, the movie star, came in to play television as Lily Munster, and the rest is pretty much history.
Oh yeah. One curious thing, I didn't know this till I was reading up on the first time we sat together a couple of years ago that the original pilot, or at least one of the test reels, was in color.
Yeah, and there was also they already had cast it with a different mom and a different kid.
Yeah.
There was a woman named Joan Marshall who was playing Phoebe, was her name, Phoebe Munster. And what happened? The network saw the pilot and they said, "Okay, we're going to go ahead with it, but we want you to change out the mom and the kid for whatever reasons." And I was living in Geneseo, Illinois at the time, which is right across from the Quad Cities, very close to Moline, and. Mary Grady, the agent, said, "Look at, I've got the perfect kid for you." She caught wind of it, and they said, "No, we've already looked at every kid in Hollywood." And she goes, "Well, that's it. He's not in Hollywood right now. He's living in Illinois with his grandmother." So she convinced them to fly me out for a screen test, which is pretty unusual at the time. They don't just take a kid off a plane and put makeup on him and throw him in front of a camera with Yvonne DiCarlo. But that's the case, and that's what happened. And then they said, "Well, don't go back to Illinois. You're hired, and make arrangements to report to work." That was the key. Was my mom had married a baseball player. He had been traded to the Washington Senators from the Los Angeles Angels. So I had to find a place to live and how to get to work every day. And I wound up moving in with my uncle, and we hired a woman to take me to work. And that's it was all happenstance. Being Eddie Munster came way around left field or end run or whatever you want to call it. And that's how I wound up doing the show.
And you were commuting back and forth on weekends, right?
Once a month, I would fly back to D.C. to visit my family and spend the weekend, and then I'd come back. And I lived, like I say, living with my uncle. But that's the weird thing about that was I was really spending more time with my TV family than my real family. So luckily, Fred was great with kids. Al was great with kids. Yvonne had 2 sons about my age. Pat Priest, Beverly Owen didn't have any kids, but when Pat Priest stepped in to take over the Marilyn Munster role, she had 2 kids. So they were. It was a kid-friendly set. I mean, the writers had done Leave It to Beaver, so they were very kid-friendly. And it was, if you had to be stuck out in Los Angeles doing a series, I was very lucky to be around very kid-tolerant people, I guess would be a good way to put it.
That's not a bad thing at all. Not bad to be a kid among kid-tolerant people.
Yeah.
Especially on a crazy set. And again, working TV shows, that schedule's pretty grueling. And and everybody had to get in just about everybody in that cast had to get in the makeup chair and the costuming, everything else. So, what was with all that stuff going on? What was the craziest day you can remember from the Munster set?
The hardest thing to remember?
What was the craziest day that sticks out?
Well, for me, you're protected. You can only work 9 hours a day, so they couldn't work me too hard. But I lived an hour away. So for my day, I was getting up around 6, getting out the door by 6:30, hopefully. With no traffic, we would get there a little early, but I was to report to makeup at 8, being 8 to 9. Mike Westmore, who you may or may not know is like one of the best makeup people in the world, I was his first, he was an apprentice, and Bud Westmore, his uncle, was running the department, and Perce Westmore, his other uncle, was handling Al Lewis. So Mike, I was his first makeup charge, so I was very honored to spend time with Mike Westmore early in his career, and today, we're still friends today. His daughter, Mackenzie Westmore, does some really good stuff with Face Off. So I was around makeup royalty for an hour in the morning, which was great. And then we would go into school and do what we needed to do. But the good news was, even though it was very grueling, we only were in makeup 3 days a week. So we literally had 4 days off to let our skin, clear up or whatever needed to be done. And Monday and Tuesday were easy, light work days, reading days, and rehearsal days. The special effects thing, another factor that came into play, and they didn't have videotape back then, so you just couldn't see what had just occurred, so you would rehearse it to death to make sure it happened right the first time, because it took hours to rebuild a breakaway door, or if you're going through the ceiling and something's flying down, you got to clean up the set. So they really they rehearsed a lot. So that was probably the biggest difference. In the hardest thing to do was the over rehearsing.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. Then. And I'm sure you got lots of questions on that. I want to cover some other stuff that he did. And show had a great run and various factors and stuff like that. But you kept on working. You popped up on stuff. Color stuff. You showed up in the Monkees.
Yeah, people ask, what other shows did you do? And I have a pretty good list. But the Monkees was, when I was a kid in school, I never really told my classmates what I was doing. I was kind of secretive about it. I just wanted to be a regular kid and be accepted, if being Eddie Munster as a regular kid. But when I was in the 8th grade, I was cast in the Monkees Christmas episode, and that was the one time I came to school after I knew I was going to be doing it and told everybody what was going on, because the Monkees were huge, and to be not only on the show, But if you've ever seen the Christmas episode, it's one of their best episodes. And I was a key player because their job was to babysit me, so to speak. And I turned out to be the little sort of a robotic adult-like child that babysat them. You know, the type of thing. So anyway, the deal was I was in a lot of scenes with them, and I was kind of an equal. And we spent a whole week with the monkeys, and that was one of my probably my favorite week of my career.
Oh, nice. Yeah, then that is a very classic episode, and a lot of people have forgotten that Disney, especially when Walt was still around, did a lot of live action films.
Yeah.
And you did a lot of work at that period for them.
Yeah, you said Disney, right? Yeah. The one thing about Disney at the time, they were the gold standard for kids. You know, and I remember I was there when Kurt Russell he turned 16 and got his driver's license. I did a movie, The One and Only Family Band, with a whole bunch of people that went on to do great things. And then I did one summer, I did two-part World of Colors, which back in the day, you know, Sunday night sign-off, the end of the weekend was everybody hovering around the television set to watch Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. It was pretty much the standard thing, and to do
the world is
to be on 4 weeks, to be on two-parters in one summer was quite an honor, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't feature films, but it was still TV, made for movie TVs, 2 parts, and I did do a couple features for him as well. But I remember that was one of my favorite deals was meeting Walt Disney and Rod Serling and Evel Knievel. I always say those are my big 3 that I was privy enough to honored enough to meet.
Well, they would take those days when they would box them up and they would like run them as features in Europe, I think.
What was that?
They would take those World of Cover. They would box them up and they would.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they pack it in VHS. They would package them up too.
They were good quality stuff. It was good stuff, and it was I remember the Disney lot was like impeccably clean. It was like Disneyland, you know. And I remember when Walt died, he even installed the commissary to keep the pricing the same and the quality of the food the same. It was very much an a studio head who had the actor's best interest, and not so much like it is some places.
I don't mention names, so I do. And another great work of yours I really enjoy, the animated adaptation of The Phantom Toll Booth.
Yeah, Chuck Jones.
Brilliant Chuck Jones, who did the bulk of the Bugs Bunnies, the really, really good and crazy ones. And this sat on the shelf for like 3 years, didn't it?
The movie took, we only shot the live portion, and then every 6 months I would go back as they animated it up and needed more voiceover work. So it took a little over 2.5 years. But the thing with Chuck about that particular movie was it was his only feature film. He called in all his favors from everybody that he could think of, especially the voiceover world, you know. So I was in a booth with Mel Blanc and Dawes Butler and Hans Conried and June Foray, seeing these people do their magic firsthand.
You read off the list I had there, yeah. Mel Blanc, Hans Conried, Dawes Butler, June Foray.
Oh yeah, so you know that was the neatest part for me, was to see these people and just sit back and watch them do their thing firsthand. But the neat thing about it was a great little book that a lot of kids had read in school. Sometimes it was even mandatory reading, and to this day it holds up. Unfortunately, what happened is it was shot at MGM, and Chuck wanted this to be like The Wizard of Oz, to be on TV every year as an annual event. But right as he finished the movie, MGM sold off everything and became MGM Grand Hotel in Vegas, and they got out of the movie business. And the movie kind of fell through the cracks, and it never really got the exposure. It's still a great movie, and it still has its following, but it never really got the exposure that he was hoping for.
Yeah, no, and I think it's available through Warner Archive, but you have to hunt for it.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's worth finding.
Yeah.
And Once in a Blue Moon, Cartoon Network would show it on their like Sunday night when they did that stuff. But anyway, it's out there. Go and find it. It's really worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And while you're at it, you can grab your hat. Speaking of hats.
Oh my God. Sid and Marty Krofft, my summer of '71, Lidsville. It's the kookiest.
Yes.
They had reached out to me to do this. My agent called me. She goes, "Hey, you know, these guys were reaching out to you, and they wanted you to do this series. Are you familiar with Lidsville? I mean, are you familiar with Puff and Stuff?" And I said, Saturday morning isn't really my strong suit for television. I was more of a cartoon guy as a kid. Now, I'm a teenager, and, the last thing I'm doing, in the morning is watching television at 16, 17, 18. But anyway, I went out and met with Sid and Marty Krofft, was very impressed with their body of work. But what put me off at first was they were trying to convince me that they made Jack Wilde a star. And I said, no, I think you're mistaken because Jack Wilde was nominated for an Oscar from this little movie called Oliver long before you ever met him. So they kind of got pissed at me for bringing that to their attention. But we finally, Marty kept asking, and Sid finally convinced me to do the show, and I'm glad he did. But the way he convinced me to do it was pretty funny. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at a picture of the Bugaloos, and there's Caroline Ellis as I think Joy was her name in the Bugaloos. I go, does she ever come around here? And he goes, oh yeah, she's here all the time. Well, she lived in Europe. She was never going to be around. But he convinced me that if I did Lidsville, I'd meet Caroline Ellis. Never happened. But we did Charles Nelson Riley, and we got Billy Hayes and Sharon Baird and all the little people in the hats. I knew most of them, so that made it an enjoyable summer.
It was a wild one, and it kind of set up the formula that they had. But they would just do one show, and then they would just do another one. And I finally got a chance to sit with Sid a couple weeks ago, and he just turned 94.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. And
we celebrated right here on the stage, gave him a cake, everything, but just really sweet man, and just like, yeah, that being a part of that pantheon is
they
pretty
did
impressive.
So much work, and they were marionettes. Actually, they started off as puppeteers, and then they did the costumes for the Banana Splits. Then they got into their own thing, and one thing led to another. I mean, they had a theme park. I mean, they did movies. They did DC Follies. They did some really good stuff, and they were very super talented. And what a body of work that they had, and to be on their third series, I was honored to do it, and I'm glad I did in hindsight for sure.
No, absolutely, and Lidsville's fun.
What was that?
It's Lidsville's fun.
Oh, Lidsville's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one. In my opinion, it's probably if after Puff and stuff, most people find it to be the most entertaining show. And I mean, they went on to do like a whole slew of them with a bunch of stars. They probably have 15 or 20 series.
Absolutely. And then you did music for a while.
Well, I don't sing, but the people convinced me it didn't matter. So after I did Lidsville, they reached out to me. Bobby Sherman was Metro Media Records' David Cassidy. They were back in the day. You had the Osmonds and the Jackson 5, and then you had some teeny bop bubblegum, 16 magazine type people. And Metro Media had let Bobby Sherman go, and these producers of Sugarloaf was a big band back in the late 60s, early 70s. Green-Eyed Lady, Don't Call Us, We'll Call You. So they reached out to my agent, and they wanted to create a David Cassidy, Bobby Sherman replacement. And they reached out to me because of Lidsville. And I immediately told them, I don't sing, I don't want to sing. And then they convinced me that it would be financially lucrative to do this, and I wouldn't have to sing, they would take care of it. So I went into the studio with Sugarloaf as my backup band. A couple weeks later, I'm singing my little heart out on American Bandstand, lip singing, getting the big interview over Loggins and Messina. I mean, that's how big I was. Woo! And we then went on tour and spent a ton of money for a year and probably sold 2 records. Because, it's hard to perform when you don't sing. So I was like the original Munster Manilli. Long before Milli Vanilli was lip singing, I was doing it. And then in the early 80s, when MTV came on the air, we attempted to make rock videos, and I wrote the lyrics to Whatever Happened to Eddie. We produced a video that turned out to be the first rock video ever on MTV without a record deal, because payola used to be the norm, that you would have to get exposure, you would have to pay people off. And we BS'd our way up the tower in New York City at Halloween because of the Munsters connection. And from that idea, they formed the Basement Tapes. So the long story is, I'm glad that we did it, because I think the Basement Tapes may have launched a few careers for some people that were good musicians but didn't have a record deal. And again, I lip synced on that one as well to stay constant.
We have the video.
Oh my God! And you're gonna play it?
If you don't mind.
If you want to play it, play it.
Well, you want, we can go.
No problem.
We can go around, watch it, and if you have any, you can comment towards it. You want to?
No, sure.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's go ahead and fire it up. We'll do
one night, $3,500.
We'll do a commentary track on this. All right.
Give a shot in one night, 3 locations.
Oh, look at that handsome fella.
Oh, I gave it a 72 because it's easy to dance to. Wreak Havoc on drums. That's me, faking the bass. Brent Black on guitar. My brother Steve Patrick on the keyboards.
Nice.
Reference to the Dragon Lady.
Yes.
The Devil signing the contract.
Oh.
Marshall T, my DJ friend, playing the sax. And the sax was done by Elvis's sax player.
No kidding.
Yep. Sign the contract, the Devil says. Oh, my goodness. 42 years ago.
Wow.
This is actually a very good sax solo. These are extras from next door, the liquor store owner. My mom's in there. My neighbor's in there.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
we
about to
have.
say, just people grab people you know.
Yep.
There's one fellow looks like Rosie Greer.
And here we have the original Woof Woof.
Oh wow. Do you still have that?
I have a facsimile, Bob.
Facsimile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Phil Cohn, the producer. George Barris lent me John Travolta's Firebird for this.
Ooh. The fact that George Barris let you borrow it is pretty cool. George Barris designed the Batmobile and the Monstermobile.
the Monster Coach. Okay, there you have it.
Ta-da!
Woo! You know, the funny thing is, everybody remembers that damn song for some reason. And, you know, hey, what are you going to do? We thought we were going to be rock producers, rock video producers, and that was our attempt.
Hey, you know, like I said, it's a fun little thing. And yes, whatever happened to Eddie Munster had kind of become a meme.
You're right.
A proto-meme.
See, there people are leaving in droves. That's what Metro Media did.
Absolutely.
I
So.
tell people that. They go, would you like to sing? I go, I put a major record corporation out of the record business. You don't want me singing.
God, too much. Well, I'm going to go jump out and take some of the questions. But before I do that, as always, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, you've been a great friend to the fandom for like so long, and coming out here and sharing these stories and everything else. And bro, just thank you. Thank you for all the good work you've done.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, one of the fun things is I have a Munster coach and a Dragula, and I'm a car guy, and I'm in a car club. So the Munsters has been so good to me because it allows me to be myself. And the fan base is so solid and, you know, family oriented and multi-generational that it's always a fun time to meet the fans, and I'm just lucky to have been on such a cool little show that has endured so well and has been licensed to so many toys and so many goodies and stuff that it allows me to go out and do this, and I couldn't be happier. So thank you for keeping the thing alive as well. Okay.
All right. Okay, so I'll just go on out and.
I don't have my hearing aids in, so I'm going to come to you.
Oh, okay.
So they don't.
Well, let's take hands then. All right. How about this fella right here?
Right here?
If you want, yeah, it's all good. Hey, what's your name?
Mark.
What you got, Mark?
Okay, so obviously Rob Zombie's huge Monsters guy, you know, one of his biggest hits, Dragula, and basically, how do you feel about Rob, and how do you feel especially about the remake there, the movie you did?
Well, two things. Number one, I met Rob years ago. It was really funny. He was in Philadelphia, and I was going to introduce him, and I came in with a Rob Zombie shirt, and he had an Eddie Munster shirt on, so we hit it right off. But what happened was, before we did the Munsters movie, he and I did commentary on the Blu-ray release of Munster Go Home. So he and I sat in a screening room together and did live commentary for 90 minutes during the actual filming, and then we became pretty good buddies. I liked it. I was during the pandemic, everybody was pretty much shut down. So when he contacted me to come up and do the voiceover work for the Tin Can Man, I wasn't aware that had filmed the movie. And he did it over in Hungary in secrecy, which was pretty amazing when you think about it, being able to actually pull off an entire movie production without anybody knowing about it. And the first thing I did when I saw it, I said, well, it looks like a Tim Burton movie, the colors and the way it looked, which is good. And then to be part of it and become friends with him and see what he did, and I liked it because, number one, it wasn't trying to be a remake of the Munsters, and it wasn't trying to be gory like, you know, the Devil's Rejects or, you know, House of this or that. But for entertainment value, I thought it was very entertaining and very funny. I really enjoyed the fact that it was a love story showing people how Herman and Lily first met. And then a good friend, Danny Roebuck, played Grandpa to a T, and Jeff Daniel Phillips, and and I thought, and everybody always kind of gives him a hard time for casting Sherry Moon, but I thought she did a great Lily. So I was happy with it. I think it was very entertaining, as long as you go in with not trying to pigeonhole it into an original Munsters or a typical Rob Zombie movie. But I thought it was good. Thanks.
Great question. Thank you. All right. I'm somebody on this side. All right. Yellow shirt. Hey, what's your name?
My name's Vaughn.
Hey, Ron.
I got a question for you. On one of the like the Amazon services or something or other, I came across a movie that it was like the Munsters go to Ocean Land.
Marineland Carnival. Yeah, Marineland, back in the day before SeaWorld, there used to be a place called Marineland of the Pacific up in Palos Verdes, which is kind of near where I grew up. But what I liked about doing that was where they filmed Sea Hunt. Lloyd Bridges had a series about a frogman, kind of like the secret agent frogman kind of a guy, and they filmed it up there. And it was really neat to do, and this was long before SeaWorld's opened up. So yeah, it's called Marineland Carnival. It's a cool little thing, and we did a couple specials like that, but that was the more popular one. Thanks.
My lungs were aching for air.
Yeah.
that was a Lloyd Bridges catchprise because
Lloyd Bridges is so funny,
and it had narration because everything was so much of it underwater. So Lloyd Bridges, like, we approached the coral reef carefully,
Yeah.
and then whenever he's in a fight and was running, my lungs were aching for air.
You got it.
So there you go. You go on more. Okay.
I just wanted to add on. I've got a black Labrador, and he has this flat little like wolf toy, and in honor of you, I've called it Woof Woof.
The Woof Woof?
Yep.
Thank you.
Right on with that. So, we got one. I'm back here. Hey, I'll come to you. Okay. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm MJ. So my question is, with the Munsters being in black and white, what was costuming like to get the right colors for the screen?
The show was actually pretty. The clothing, I was in a very dark gray, kind of a mushroom suit. For Munster Go Home, they upped it to a purple suit for color, obviously. But for the black and white, we were pretty much just in dark. Fred was like a maroon suit, dark suit. Al, of course, he had the red, the count, and then he had the cape and the gloves and the red lining, I believe, in his cape. But overall, it was fairly toned down stuff.
There you go.
Thank you.
And you had one? Did you have your hand up? Oh, sorry, I think I did. Okay, who's got?
Here we go.
All right. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Tamara. Hi.
Hi, Pamela.
Tamara.
Oh, Kamala?
No. With a
Tamala.
T.
T.
All right.
I told you I couldn't hear.
I know. That's all right. What is your favorite episode?
Oh, goodness. I have several. I'll try to make it brief. Probably over the top, my favorite was Zombo, because Louis Nye, and I was a fan of Louis Nye from him being Sonny Drysdale. But the fact that there was a TV movie horror host that I thought was real, and then the whole idea that I'm very disappointed that he's not a real guy. But aside from that, knowing and loving George Barris, the Hot Rod Herman episode where we introduce the Dragula, and then Eddie's nickname probably is up there with the beard, because I love the idea of that's the one that they have the little father and son talk at the end, and he says, "It's not what you look like; it's it's what you you black, white, yellow, tall, short, fat, or handsome like your husband or like your father."
That's been reshared a lot the past couple of
gets a
years. That's
lot of
popped up on
views.
Instagram stories, and yeah.
And then also Bill Mooney's guest starring with Little Googie was a fun one, because he was supposed to. They offered the part to him first, and he turned it down, and then he wound up doing Lost in Space. So it worked out well for both of us. He got Lost in Space, I did the Munsters, and everybody was happy. But those are my 3 or 4.
What's one of your favorites?
Oh my goodness. Probably where he gets Dragula. Yeah.
The Hot Rod Herman.
Hot Rod, yeah.
The Hot Rod Herman.
I'm a fan of the episode when Herman gets horribly disfigured.
Oh!
Where Fred, it's just Fred without the
And he's
makeup.
himself.
Yes.
Yeah. That was he loved that week. No makeup.
So that was what his
And then also at the end of that one, he gets hit by lightning, but he looks like a woman, and he's going to work as a cocktail waitress.
Yeah. Sorry. Hey, what's your name?
Brandy. I was wondering, you mentioned that you were not telling kids that you were in the Munsters. Did anybody recognize you outside of all the makeup with the widow's peak and everything?
Yeah, it's funny. People say, were you typecast? And I go, if you think about it, Typecasting would be if you were like wearing the makeup and going out to other places and trying to do it. But no, people would recognize my voice for some reason, and I was little, so occasionally they would recognize me around where I lived. But other than that, not too bad.
Good. The advantage of the pre-internet days.
What do you keep giving away?
Oh, candy. You ask a question, you get a piece of candy.
Good.
What's that?
Works
Well,
for
he's
me.
answering them. He's
Well,
not
you
asking.
know,
Yeah.
where's mine?
Well, all right, well, you'll get one eventually. All right, let me take this handsome dressed man. Hey, what's your name?
Wesley. So, being that you were so young in the Munsters, granted I came to the talk late, so hopefully this question didn't get asked already. Was there anything from working with Fred or any of the other actors or actresses that made an impact on your life that you were able to take forward while you're growing up?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It's funny because everybody in the cast helped me a little bit because, like I said, my family was on the East Coast. Fred was the actor's actor. He was Harvard, he was very, very, a Hasty Pudding Club, musician, an artist. He was, like a Renaissance kind of guy. And I learned a lot of techniques about acting from him. Now, Al Lewis, his counterpart, was circus, vaudeville, very different types. And maybe that's why their comedy chemistry works so well. But from Al, I learned a lot about the rules of life, engagement, and how things are going to happen and what you should do. And Al was a big sports fan. He was a big, basketball. He was actually on the payroll of several NBA teams. So Fred and Al actually took me to my first hockey game. I remember that. And the funny thing about that is I'd never been to a hockey game. And after the second period, I get up to leave, thinking it's two halves. And he goes, no, this is hockey. There's a third period coming up here. I go, I get it. And then from Yvonne DiCarlo, a very strong woman in Hollywood. I mean, she was like old school. Don't mess with me, boys, like Joan Crawford did in Mommy Dearest. That was her. She was strong, and she held her own. And I think she was the key to the show that nobody anticipated how well she was going to do. And then as far as Pat Priest, she was her mother was a politically powerhouse. She was treasurer of the United States in the Eisenhower administration. So Pat grew up in D.C. as a teenager and going to all the D.C. stuff. So she had a lot going on in her life as well. But she was a very sweet person, and she did movies with Elvis. So her deal was she was a smart businesswoman because she made a lot of money in real estate. So I was around a lot of people that gave me some insights on life. And but Fred and Al were the two. Basically, the acting, our father and son scenes with Herman and Eddie, they started writing more of them as they saw that I could handle dialogue, and it worked well that he was so tall and I was so little. So they wrote a lot of father and son shows, which I liked, because a lot of times a kid on a series will sort of be a secondary character. But luckily, to Leave It to Beaver writers, that was the first series where the kids were actually the stars and the show was focusing on them, and the parents were the secondary supporting cast. So a little bit of it trickled off on us.
Fun question. And good cook cosplay, by the way. Thank you. Who got another one? Going once, going,
Don't make me come to you.
what's
Don't make me send Grandpa.
a really, really, really peculiar minor point in your career, and I'm still looking for this. The Addams Family Funhouse.
Oh my God.
Yes. He crossed over and he played the counterpart.
Pugsley.
Yes, he played Pugsley Addams once.
Yeah, there was it's called, you can look it up, Google it. It's called the Addams Family Funhouse. I believe it was 1972. They made a one-off. They only did one show. Mr. Carlin from the Jack Riley was his name. From the Newhart show played Gomez. Let me see. We had Pat McCormick was Lurch. We had Stubby K was Uncle Lester, and we had Liz Torres performed as Morticia. And then they had Helen Von Salt was Wednesday, and I played Eddie. Pugsley. The funny thing about it was kind of it had a musical guest situation coming on where we were all singing, "Come on, baby, light my fire," and the house is falling down. And our musical guest was Jim Neighbors. Gomer Pyle was our guest, and he's actually a great singer. But it was so weird, like the Addams Family Funhouse with Eddie Munster as Pugsley, and then we have Jim Neighbors as oh my God, it was a mess. We only did it once, but I'm the only person to play both Eddie and Pugsley. Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause it was like a kind of like a laughing.
it was
thing too,
horrible.
Right?
It was
Yeah.
horrible. Everybody's got a few clunkers in their closet, that's mine.
Well, just the fact that you are the only person in history to play both those characters.
Yeah.
And again, because there's
Yeah.
always been people always raise, so who would win in a fight between the Munsters and the Addams
Right.
family?
Well, there's
like you've never been asked that question before.
No. Well, there's also people who ask, like, did you ever, the part that got away in Hollywood, there's always a part that got away. Everybody's got one. Mine was, I'm 18 years old with hair down here, and I'm in my wetsuit surfing, and this unknown guy comes to the beach and tracks me down and says, hey, I'd like you to be in this movie with me that I'm making, but you're going to have to cut that hair off like you're a GI. And I go, no, thank you. And back into the ocean I went. And then I found out later the guy's name was George Lucas, and his little movie was American Graffiti. And it was like, oh, well, that's going to hurt right there. I'm watching the movie. I go, and it was Richard Dreyfuss's part. It was like the lead part in this great, crazy little movie that nobody knew who George Lucas was at the time. And then my mom asked me, she goes, I don't understand why you didn't get an interview for Star Wars. I go, I kind of told him to, like, go fuck off. And I don't think he's going to come back and offer me a part in this blockbuster movie.
I got to say, oh, are you Butch Patrick? I'm making a movie about you have to cut your hair.
Yeah. No, thank you. Excuse me. Got to get back in the water.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It was
Thank you
1971. We were all doing it.
Thank you for your time. George is like that. So I would too. So one of you. All right. Tell you what. We can time for one more if someone wants to throw something out, or we'll just going once. Well, I'll tell you what. What's anything going on right now? What's
I am
coming
so.
up in your world?
What I'm doing is I like to do stuff that's never. I try to think outside the box. Being on the Munsters, imagine that. What I'm doing next year is I've actually become a member of the Drive-In Owners Association of America, and what we're going to do, I've done 3 test runs with 3 different drive-ins, and I'm doing screenings midweek because there's only 400 drive-ins left in the country out of 4,000. So what I do now is when these drive-ins want to do something, I'm going to go to the convention in Kissimmee in January, and I'm going to offer them special packaging to help them do midweek movie nights like Munster Mondays or Wednesdays, and we're going to do movies, the first go-round that feature movies like Christine, Back to the Future, Munster Go Home with the Munster Coach, and then I'm going to be the go-to agent for the drive-in associations to help them make midweeks profitable to make sure none of them go under and maybe even some of them even flourish. So I'm going to be going to all drive-in movies theaters. It's really cool. I offer them double features for midweek, and I'm going to be my own little mini like an AMC guy. I'm going to be a movie supplier. So that's exciting. Thanks.
There's a drive-in in Kissimmee?
No, that's the convention.
Oh,
The
all right.
convention's in Kissimmee. There's one, but there are several around. There's like I said, there's 400 of them left. Most of the things I'm going to be doing will be Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania across the Midwest. But there's a few pop up into Wisconsin, Michigan, this and that, and Kentucky. But I'm very excited about it. I love the drive-ins. I always went to drive-ins, and what we're doing now is we're going to create a how to get kids to come to the drive-in. So we're going to be shooting 10-minute horror segments from each drive-in. We're creating a serial killer that will appear at each drive-in, and then we tell people, say, have you ever thought about being in a movie? Yeah, like scary movies? Well, come on out and dive in at the drive-in, and you may be in a scary movie. So we're going to have filming and we're going to have drones going. So we're going to tell people, if you want to come out and do a super scary selfie, put them on the screen behind it, and they can be in a horror movie.
Speaking of selfie, you want to take one with the audience?
I'd love to.
All right, let's do that. Okay, everybody. Well, actually, let's see. You want them to come forward?